Hello, and welcome to the Connect the Dots podcast. My name is Heather. My pronouns are she, her. I am a white woman with short strawberry blonde hair. I am currently wearing a dark gray t-shirt that says "Be kind," and I'm sitting in front of a teal wall that is covered with different art pieces. So if this is your first time listening or watching, welcome in. Excited to have you here with me. If you are a returning listener or watcher on YouTube, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate that you're here. It makes me happy. As you may know, if you have been here before, if you've read anything about the podcast, we cover a lot of different topics. Last week, we did a deep dive into toxic positivity with my Deep Thoughts episode. And then this week, we're going to turn to neurodiversity, and we're going to talk about the concept of masking. And then next week will be an interview episode, followed on the last week of the month with an episode that is focused on how to navigate the workplace. Before I get fully into the topic today, though, I would like to ask if you would please share this podcast or YouTube video on your social media. Please tag me in it if it's over on Instagram. I am at Ms. Heather B. Tag me in the post so I can see it and so I can say thank you. Because I really appreciate it. It makes my day when I see somebody share my podcast. My friend April, upstate Mississippi, shared it the other day, and just it makes my day. I love it. I love to see that when you share it. So thank you for the shares. And if you're not subscribed, go ahead. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. There's a bell right next to it. I will tell you this. I found out from my personal experience. On that little bell, click it, but then click it again, and make sure you click on all, or else you're gonna miss or get delayed notifications that I posted a video. I don't know, maybe YouTube's just doing that to me, but there's a little handy hint from me to you about subscribing on YouTube. If you want to get those notifications, make sure that the all is selected. If you are on your favorite podcast app, I'm sure there's a way to subscribe. That button, follow. Some of them are follow, some of them are subscribe. I appreciate it. I was looking over my vision board today, and I looked at my, what my goal is for the year as far as listens or plays or downloads, however it's, calculated. And my goal is 50,000. So we are halfway through the year, and I'm at 4,100. I have a little ways to go. So I need your help in doing that. So every listen, every like, every subscribe helps me do that. So appreciate you very, very much. Okay. Last week, when we discussed toxic positivity, I mentioned that it was like a mask for me at times. A smile, a happy face that came through regardless of the circumstance. Always there to tell you that it's going to be okay, right? It's going to be okay. Everything happens for a reason. Now, please don't take that as though I wasn't sincere in my concern and my love for those around me. It was instead me defaulting to that state of toxic positivity, of that kind of fake, essence. I was defaulting to that state versus actually feeling or addressing the emotions of whatever situation was happening. So that is, that's kind of where we are, right? It felt like a mask for me. And so I thought it would be really good to kind of continue on this theme, but we're gonna transition into, like I said, the neurodiversity topic. If you've been listening to the podcast, I have, as I've started my neurodiversity journey, and having been diagnosed with ADHD, I've started to learn more about the concept of masking, in terms of how it comes along with ADHD. And having heard that term and seen the memes about it, I knew it was a concept that I really wanted to dig into more, to learn more about and to share with you. because education on these topics is important because it deals with our mental and physical health. And our mental health is extremely important. Our physical health is extremely important. So that is part of the reason that I pick these topics to research and dive into and cover with you. But here's my disclaimer. I am not a medical doctor. And the information that I do provide is based on my personal experiences and the research that I find online. Please, if you feel like this information relates to you, that you could possibly have ADHD or something similar, please make sure that you're seeking out the appropriate doctors and therapists to get that proper medical advice and diagnosis if needed. I want to, again, provide the information because there's a lot out there. Definitely, as I've been going through and trying to learn more, there's a lot to navigate through. And so there have been people in the social media world that have helped me walk through my journey already. And so if there's a person out there that I can help as they walk through their journey, that's what I want to do. I want to pay it forward. Let's start, though, with an explanation of what is masking. So, hi, Kitty. Kitty's going to say hi before we get started. Hi, would you like to come say hi, Milo? No? Oh, well, you can jump up here on the desk. That's fine. Yes, no, maybe. Oh, goodness gracious. What a mess he is. Okay. Sorry. I get distracted by Milo. He's just so cute and furry. Okay. So where were we at? So explaining exactly what is the concept of masking. So PsychCentral.com says, they have an article on there that's, again, everything I reference is linked in the description or the show notes. PsychCentral says ADHD masking is also called camouflaging or impression management. It involves hiding symptoms or overcompensating for them. When you mask ADHD, you try to act like you do not have the condition. Masking is not the same thing as managing ADHD. I like that they put that call out there. Then there's an article that I found on verywellmind.com. This was written by Arlen Kunsick. Hopefully I said that correctly. But Arlen says it's also, again, it's called impression management. The term itself was coined by Russell Barkley, who said it occurs in about 1/3 of people with ADHD. And then Kunsick goes on to say that research on ADHD masking is still limited, and it has not been studied extensively. Barkley said that this is due to the fact that ADHD masking is a very difficult concept for people without ADHD to understand. So they might find it hard to believe. And I get why psychologist Russell Barkley, why he kind of puts it that way, that masking is difficult for people without ADHD to understand. As a person who was just recently diagnosed with ADHD, the concept of masking is, it's not that I don't, well, I mean, I can't say I fully understand it, but that part about, like, they might find it hard to believe, right? Because people without ADHD can't understand it. I think for me, that's kind of where I am. I'm trying to decipher what have I been masking? Like, what are my masking behaviors, and how can I kind of stop, right? Stop the ones that are harmful to my mental and physical health, they're keeping me from being authentically me. Yeah, I have trouble with it. So, which is, again, reasons why I do episodes like this, so we can learn together. All right. There is a long list of examples in that verywellmind.com article, but I'm going to pull out just the ones that I that I mostly related to when I was doing my research. So the first one was, and this is examples of masking in ADHD, but seeming fine and not showing any signs that there is a problem, when in reality, you're struggling to keep up or maintain relationships. Definitely, I can definitely see that one in my life. Like seeming fine, trying not to show signs that there's problems, when internally, I am struggling to keep up. I'm struggling to stay connected with the different relationships in my life. So, absolutely, definitely a mask that I have worn and still wear at times. The second one that I related to was obsessively organizing paperwork and creating systems to make sure they can find what they need. I have so many systems. Yes, I like to organize paperwork. And I think too, not just like physical paperwork, but digital paperwork as well. I like to like put everything in its place, know where everything is. My bookmarks are like super duper organized at work. Like I have systems that work. To the point of like when I was at Apple, like I had my screen set up the same way for like a majority of my time there. And so when I came to my job now, like I set my computer up exactly the same way. Like it's the system that works for my brain, because then I know where to find the things I need. I don't have to use the extra executive function, the extra brain power to figure out where something is, because I've created the system that works for me and my mind. Okay, next one, bottling up intense emotions until you feel sick inside without knowing why. And this can sometimes lead to depression. Definitely something, bottling up emotions, keeping them to myself. I have done this a lot in life. I know that it probably did lead to some of the depressive episodes that I've had throughout, growing up. So it's not good. It's not good to do that. The next one, attempting to cope with the world by developing perfectionist tendencies. Right? Expecting that I will never do anything wrong. Yes, I definitely, perfectionist tendencies. Yes. I will agree with that. Definitely something that, I've dealt with. We've talked about it here on the podcast a lot. All right, the next one was overdoing something until exhaustion sets in so that others see how capable and reliable you are, even though deep down you are struggling. I'm just going to leave that one right there. Yep. The next one was hiding that you may feel overwhelmed by your responsibility leads to feelings of shame and guilt. So these two kind of tie in together, right? Because you're overworking until exhaustion sets in, so that people can see how capable and reliable you are, even though you're struggling. And you're hiding the fact that you're struggling. You're hiding the fact that you're overwhelmed by your responsibilities. And when you're hiding those, you feel guilt and you feel shame. You feel like, why can't I take that mask off? Why can't I talk to somebody about it? Why don't I have a safe space? Like you ask I say, and I'm saying this like this is my experience, right? I have asked myself those questions numerous times throughout my life. And so these two really go hand in hand for me. Hiding the fact that I'm overwhelmed, not wanting to ask for help because I feel that guilt of, well, I mean, surely everybody else is as busy as me. Why can't I keep up with these things? Nobody else has time to do this either. I'll just make it happen. Keep doing something until I'm exhausted to show people that I can do it. It's a cycle. It's a masking cycle. The last one from this article on Very Well Mind was that I really related to was suppressing stimming behaviors like leg bouncing so that you don't disturb others even though you feel uncomfortable sitting still. Holy moly, that is Heather to a T. So me. I've talked about that as we've talked about this journey of mine. Like, that was one of the things when I started researching ADHD that like immediately for me stuck out like a sore thumb, was that I bounce my leg constantly. I tend to, like right now, in my office chair, like I'm sitting cross-legged, because if I put my feet down, number one, it's not comfortable. Number two, I will shake, and it will shake my desk, which will shake the camera, which will shake the mic. It's just not good. So I sit with my legs crossed most of the time, and which is very bad for my hips and my back and my physical well-being, according to my chiropractor and my massage therapist, who constantly are trying to help me overcome the pain that I have now put myself in. So, yes, so that is definitely something that that I mask. Sometimes it's a helpful mask. Sometimes it's very difficult. We were sitting at a restaurant Friday night eating dinner, and I've been having some pain in my leg, so I guess I've strained my hamstring again, and so it hurts. And like we're sitting in these high chairs, and I'm short, so like the high bar kind of chair at a high top table. Obviously I'm not touching the floor, and so I've got like my feet on the bar, but like I could not get comfortable, and by the end of dinner I'm like half sitting on the chair, like just trying to take the pressure off of my leg. Because like, again, I couldn't like take my flip-flops off and sit cross-legged in the chair. Like, that's not really appropriate. I mean, who's to say it's not appropriate, but I didn't feel like that would be appropriate in a restaurant. So, okay. I digress. My bad. Sorry. I will continue. Another article that I read was from medium.com, and there was an article written by Jillian Enright, and she wrote, "When we mask our neurodivergence, we attempt to achieve and demonstrate neurotypical behavior by using y'all, I can't say this word. By using these strategies, right? These strategies to demonstrate neurotypical behavior, right? A couple articles called it like mirroring. So that's, when I think about that, right? That story I just said about in the restaurant, masking my neurodivergence, in an attempt to demonstrate normal or neurotypical behavior in the restaurant, I wasn't going to, kick my flip-flops off and put my feet in my chair, where maybe I would have been more comfortable, where maybe my leg would not have been hurting so much. I didn't do that because I was trying to demonstrate that neurotypical behavior, to achieve normalcy. In her article as well, there was an image that had, so it was this longer image, and on one side it had the ADHD behavior, and then on the other side it was like how she would mask it. And the last one was very on point. So on the side, the ADHD behavior was, I have a hard time deciding in the moment and have to reread every choice multiple times. And so the image here is like the little person like looking at a menu, and the waiter is behind them like staring like, what do you want? So that behavior of like having that hard to like in the moment decide, having to reread everything multiple times. And then the other side, like how she would mask it, she put, so I started secretly looking up menus in advance, and then would write down the choices in her phone, like the choices that she wanted in her phone. So then she wouldn't have to look at the menu. Again, this is very relatable to me. I often at a restaurant will make fun of myself saying, oh, I can never decide. But this literally happened to me today at lunch. Today. We went to a restaurant that we go to very often. I order DoorDash from there when Jay is out playing a lot because I like their filet mignon and mashed potatoes. So I know their menu. I know the items on the menu that I like. But still, I wasn't ready when the waitress came over. So she was like, oh, that's fine. I'll come back in a minute. And so then I spent 3 or 4 minutes reading the entire menu again, narrowing down the choices to what I wanted, right? And oh, man. So I did. I read every menu choice. And then I was like, oh, but I think I want a salad. So I read the salads like multiple times. And then I was like, but maybe I want the sliders. Jade's getting sliders. Maybe I'll get sliders too. Just back and forth until I finally was like, this is what I'm getting, the chopped salad. That is what I'm getting. Menu, go away. And I had to push it out of the way. So I wouldn't pick it up again until she came, because she hadn't come back yet. Now, sometimes I have done this hack before. When we're trying to figure out where to go, I'll look up the menu and see if there's something that I want. A lot of times I'm looking it up to see if there's something that Jay will eat. Because he's like, I'll eat at almost any restaurant. But there are things I want to make sure that they have for him so that he'll be able to eat and enjoy the restaurant as well. But anytime we do that, right, if we've got different choices, or we're like, oh, we're going to go here and it's a new place, I'll look before we go and I'll think, oh man, I really want this thing. Like, oh, if they have a lobster roll, oh man, I'd love a lobster roll. Or, oh, that burger looks so good on their website. I'll make that decision only to get to the restaurant and spiral because I'm looking at the menu all over again, changing my mind, trying to figure it out, going, ooh, but the tacos, ooh, but the this, ooh, but the that. Like, I almost ordered fish tacos today at this restaurant. Y'all, in my head, I want to love fish tacos. I don't. But I will continue to order them still. Because I will spiral and I'll go, ooh, but it has mango salsa and it has all these things that I like. I don't like, especially fried fish tacos. Now, a grilled or blackened fish taco I can probably do, but most of the time you get them, they're fried, and don't like it. Okay, sorry. I digress. All right, Enright also shared, here's another catch-22. Masking limits one's sense of self. Masking also increases stress. Increased stress increases emotional dysregulation, and reduced self-concept clarity reduces the efficacy with which we manage our emotions. Whew, that's a lot of words. So let's kind of take that back because that's a long sentence. So, masking increases stress. That increased stress then increases our emotional dysregulation, and that reduced self-concept clarity that we have at that point reduces the efficacy with which we manage our emotions. There's a lot there. She continues on by saying, camouflaging may allow us to pass for neurotypical in certain situations, but we're still divergent at the neurocognitive level. Our brains are still different beneath our mask. Yes. a lot of times when I do these episodes, and you're like, you may think, gosh, she sure does read a lot of quotes. That's because I curate this information together so that it helps it to make sense for me. And I always want to, number one, I want to give credit where credit is due. I don't want to take somebody's words and say that they're my own for sure. But I just think these people, I want to share the information that these people have done their research, the writing that they've done. I want to share that as well because they spent their time doing it. So I'll share it. Sorry. It is. If you've never listened to one of my podcasts, sometimes I get a little off track. Welcome. Okay. Let me get back on track. So some of the other consequences that masking can have, this comes back from the verywellmind.com article. They said that ADHD masking replaces outward stress with internal stress. Again, we're pulling in that increased stress that happens. People who engage in ADHD masking can continue to go undiagnosed for years because they are able to hide their struggles well. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Have apparently hid them even from myself. ADHD masking can make it hard for you to know what is real and what is an act. You may feel as if you are not able to be yourself and instead turn into someone else so that others will like you. Okay, so this is, real story. So back when I was, this was back in, I guess, 2008. So this is before I met Jay. This was around the time I was going through my divorce. And I remember telling a really good friend at the time, I was so different when I was around, like, her. And when I wasn't, when my ex-husband wasn't there. When I would be hanging out with her and her family, if he was there, I would be very quiet. I didn't say a lot of things. I wasn't, bubbly. I just was very quiet and reserved. And when I would just like be me and her, or just me and her, and maybe like her mom or something, I would come out of my shell. I would be making jokes. I would laugh. I would sing. I was able to be myself in a way that I didn't get to express when I was around my ex-husband. That's not to say anything bad about my ex-husband, so let me put that out there. It wasn't like he was saying I couldn't say or do anything. It was just how I was acting. I was just a different person when he was around. Again, reasons that we're not together. All right, and then the last one that I want to share, the consequences of masking that they had in this article. It says, if you are very good at masking your ADHD symptoms, people may not believe you when you tell them that something is wrong or that you are struggling. That one really hits me. I cannot lie. Like, that one hit me really hard when I read it. Because I've told, as I've been, open and been telling people, have telling people, yes, I was diagnosed with ADHD. Like, they get this look, like people that have known me for a long time, they get this look on their face, or like I can hear it in their voice if we're on the phone, like, really? You? Yeah. And I get it. I understand. So there was an article that I found on attitude.com that was written by Dr. Ellen Littman. And that article is called "I'm Smart, so I should be able to overcome ADHD," right? And for me, that rolls right into that last bullet point I shared about people not believing me when I tell them. In the article, Dr. Littman writes that high IQ people with attention deficit often excel at tasks requiring divergent thinking, which is spontaneous and nonlinear, right? Outside of the box thinking. They're usually less successful at tasks requiring convergent thinking, which requires accuracy, logic, and speed, like math SAT thinking. Again, I know this is kind of generalized, so I'm reading Dr. Littman's words here, and I don't even know what my IQ is, so maybe it's not high, but I think about this. I relate to this statement though, in the fact that attention deficit people who have ADHD do excel at tasks that require divergent thinking, that out of the box thinking. But there are some that do excel at the accuracy, logic, those kind of things. For me, that is not it. When it said math SAT thinking, that gave me flashbacks. Test taking is not my friend. Timed test give me the heebie-jeebies. I hate them so much. I took the ACT 3 times in high school. I made a 19, a 21, and a 21. And I was like, I'm done. I cannot make any higher. I'm not going to take it again. Because just the sheer anxiety of that being a timed test just is a no for me. I've always kind of had that test anxiety around time test. I had to take a certification test a couple weeks ago. It was 100 questions in 2.5 hours. I ended with like 20 minutes to go. I was nervous if I was going to finish or not. Because I have to read the question, I have to reread the question and reread the question multiple times. So I digress again. My apologies. But Dr. Littman continues and says, those who grow up celebrated as smart internalize their intellect as a foundation of their identities and source of self-esteem. Hello, have you met me? It absolutely was and still is to some point a foundation of my identity, and was a source of self-esteem. Yeah. She continues on. She says, they know that they carry the expectation of success. Thriving in school with little effort, they have been told that success will be theirs. But here's where the path begins to diverge for those with ADHD. Due to the developmental delays that characterize ADHD, children with the condition tend to lag 3 to 5 years behind their chronological peers in social or emotional functioning. At the same time, very bright children with the condition often function 3 to 5 years beyond their peers intellectually. So, I grew up labeled as a smart kid. Had all A's in school. I made 2 B's the entire course of my kindergarten to 12th grade. So I was smart. I was salutatorian of my graduating class. And when I read this statement about like kind of where the paths diverge for people with ADHD, right? You either have the ones that may be lagging behind their peers, or you have the ones the bright, or maybe those that are considered smart or high functioning, or seen as high functioning. That condition often gives them that like they're 3 to 5 years beyond their peers. I I remember, like, growing up, I was always, I was an only child until I was 12. But I was, like, getting myself up for school and getting ready for school when I was 10, 9, 10. I was, fairly young. I was getting myself up and ready for school, and then I would go across the street to my neighbor's house and wait for the bus. And then at some point when I was maybe like 13, I was like, the bus smells. I'm going to walk to school because I live 2 streets from the school. So then I walked to school every day. And then when I was 14, I got my motorcycle's license, and then I rode my motorcycle to school. Like, yeah, like I was like, I don't know, like I always was hanging out. Again, I was an only child, but I always tended to, like, enjoy conversation and be able to relate more with the people older than me than I did with the people that were, like, my age. Again, hindsight, looking back, like, you see these things. All right. Later in the article, Dr. Lippman shares the story of Mark, a stellar student back in the day. He was debate team captain, accepted to 2 Ivy League schools. He can't relate to that earlier self, that person that he used to be. Because now Mark is a 38-year-old advertising executive. He just zoned out in his last business meeting and is worried that he missed something relevant. And then after finishing his PowerPoint at 2 a.m., he overslept the next day and left home without coffee. He says, "Whoever I was, I'm not that guy anymore. It doesn't seem to matter how much I know. When I have to perform, I freeze up and feel incompetent." Sorry, water break. I relate to parts of this story. Number one, I'm 38 years old, so I relate to that. I have been known to zone out in conversations before, and worried that I missed something relevant. So a lot of times I have to go back and recap, put context clues together. I've been known to stay up late. I tend not to. I say that and then I'll oversleep tomorrow. I tend not to oversleep because then I just tend not to sleep. And I work from home, so I never leave home without coffee. But I get that, right? It's sometimes I look back and I go, that person, I don't know who that person was. I don't feel like that person anymore. It's so weird to think about, like, the differences in the things that I've learned about myself and that I now know about myself. Okay. And I know, I apologize. I'm sorry, I hit my mic. I apologize that sometimes I get off of the topic. But I write, like, I have my bullet points, and then, like, I just kind of go with it sometimes. Okay. So the story of Mark is followed up with the reminder that a high IQ can make it easier to compensate for ADHD symptoms, and higher IQ adults with ADHD appear to function well, but this comes at a high emotional cost. Investing much time and energy to present a flawless personal persona, they rely on obsessive behaviors to guarantee organization and structure. However successfully they manage their cycles of procrastination and hyperfocus, they inevitably will feel burdened and exhausted. Determined to keep anxiety, frustration, shame, and disappointment internalized, they relentlessly self-monitor. They are hypervigilant about hiding anything that might expose their internal chaos. I probably just could have read that paragraph earlier and been like, this is Heather. This is how I have felt. How I feel sometimes. How I'm sure I will feel again in the future. because in that quest of school where, getting all A's and being pushed to, you're smart, why did you get this grade? Why didn't you get an A, kind of thing. In that, trying to present that flawless personal, or, that flawless public persona, I really did rely on, things to guarantee, behaviors to guarantee organization and structure. I was pretty regimented with kind of what I did, and then, I was in band, so, I had, all of the, I had practice, so, I had a pretty set schedule, throughout that kind of kept me on point. Now as an adult, in the work field, managing the cycles of procrastination and hyperfocus, it can be very exhausting, because it's not that I procrastinate or something on purpose. Sometimes it's the thought of just kind of, sorry, I'm trying to think of how to explain it. Sometimes it's just okay, I've got to do this thing. I need to be in the right mindset. Well, I'm not in the right mindset because, my email's got too many things in it. There's too many things on my desk. There's I tell myself that I must have all of this order and structure before I can actually start the thing. And then once I get into hyper focus, then it's easy. I get it done. I'm boom, 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 boom. Hey, it's done. Yay! But then I'm just wiped, completely wiped. I need to go and just sit and be quiet, or listen to a book, or go to bed. Yes, hyper vigilant about hiding anything that might expose my internal chaos. And I would be lying if I said that this process, that learning more about this and working through this kind of stuff was making things easier for me. It's not. It's not making things easier. And I know that's part of the process of learning about ADHD, about the mask that I have worn, that I wear, what's the good, what's the bad, all of that. I know that it's not going to be easy walking through this. Earlier today, while I was reading through the articles, getting ready and writing this podcast, I kept going into the living room to say hi to Jay, and I was I'd get up, I'd walk in to look in the refrigerator, not to eat anything, just to look, or refill my water, or just get up off the floor. And so anytime I go in the living room, this is an everyday thing. I go in, he's sitting on the couch. I'm like, hey, hon. I give him a hug. I give him a kiss. So I did that. So I walked out, gave him a hug and a kiss, said, hey. He was like, what was wrong? He could just see it on my face. He felt like something was wrong. I said, oh, nothing. I'm good. And I came back in the office to the computer. And, the next time that I went out, he asked again. He said, hey, are you okay? You look sad. You don't look, happy. What's going on? I said, oh, it's just my leg. It's hurting. My shoulder hurts. I don't know if I slept on it wrong. I don't know. Because I will say, my hamstring and my shoulder have been really angry with me today. I'm so mad. Anyways, so I tell him this, and so then I'm walking back to my office, and I stop, and I turn back around to Jay, and I told him the truth. I told him how I was really feeling. And I started to cry. Because I was just very overwhelmed with the emotions that I was feeling today. Between my leg, like my hamstring hurting, my arm hurting, my hip hurting, like, it's so frustrating that I can't, like, figure out, like, how to fix these things, how to get it back to where it does not hurt. But that kind of spilled over into, like, some of the things that I, like, thinking about myself and how I feel physically and how I feel mentally, right? So I started to cry. He comes over, he gives me a hug, he comforts me while I'm sobbing. He listens to me ramble through my thoughts, the concerns that I have. And I will say, like, it felt so good to kind of let that mask down and, like, actually let my feelings that I was feeling at that moment, like, let them out. And you know, in my head, the story that I tell myself is that, oh, I don't want to burden him with the way that I'm feeling. I don't want to seem like I'm complaining. That's the reason sometimes I think, you know, we don't tell people things. We don't want to complain. We don't want to come across as that. But, you know, but Jay's my husband. I need to be honest with all of those feelings of when I feel upset, when my body hurts, when I'm frustrated with something. I can't put my mask on of everything's okay, I'll figure it out. Hiding those things, right? Hiding that internal chaos. I can't do that. I have to let him see and let him understand and let him help me in the ways that he can help me. So now that we've gone through all that deep stuff, so now what, right? How do I begin to determine what a mask is, what a mask isn't, what is helpful and what is not? And Dr. Littman shared 6 steps to accepting yourself, ADHD, IQ, and all. And she introduces this list by saying, having someone bear witness to your experience is the first step toward self-acceptance. You cannot change your brain wiring, but there are many ways to feel worthier in your own skin. And that is something I would love, is to feel worthier in my own skin. Okay. So let me go through this list. So there's 6 things she says. So the first one she says is to learn everything you can about your ADHD brain. I am working on that one, checking that box. She says, read, watch webinars, join online groups so that you can understand why you can't always control your responses, regardless of how smart you are. There is relief in discovering that many share the journey that feels like yours alone. And so I'm actually in a couple groups on Facebook, like some cleaning. One of them's like a cleaning group or something. And it's somebody just posted in there today. They were like, I just want to say thank you to this group for making me feel less alone. Because people post, and it's a safe space to post. And people come into the comments with helpful suggestions, supportive words, instead of like ripping people to shreds. You see people do this on Facebook all the time. There's this like pizza page or something that Jay's on, and he was showing me today. There was this post that said, where's the best pizza, in Pittsburgh? And people were like, drive 3 hours east, New York City, like being just being smart alecks about it. And that's not like, I get that it's, let me not lessen this, because that's just rude. That's just, that to me, like, it's not helpful, right? If you're going to post on a page with a lot of stuff and you're going to give like answers like that, like that's not helpful to that person. But like in this group, right, that's like part of the reason that this group exists, is because you can post in the group about your like cleaning questions, like how do I clean this? How do I start with this particular mess? How do I do these things? And the people that respond they are helpful and supportive responses versus somebody just coming and being like, oh, you're such a mess. Like those kind of like not useful things. And so it makes you feel, it lets you know that you are not alone. This is not a journey that you're walking through by yourself. Nobody's journeys are the same, but you have the similarities of things that you deal with. All right, the second thing that she says is to strip away labels. You are not your symptoms, nor your diagnosis, nor your IQ. Separate the existence of who you are from the labels that might limit you. As you rid yourself of those labels, you can begin to redefine your identity with more realistic aspects of who you are, not who you should be. Yes, let's... Next thing Heather has to work on. It says break out. The third one is break out of the prison of isolation. It says take the risk, work with a therapist, talk with a best friend, a partner, or a support group. Imagine feeling safe enough to take off your mask without fear of rejection. And that's something that's something I did today. You know, I took that mask off. I wasn't scared of Jay rejecting me. I was like, I have to be open with all of the things that I'm feeling, and I felt safe enough to do that. And it felt good to not be isolated with those thoughts at that point in time. And then this information, right, definitely, these are things that are going to be coming with me to my next therapy appointment, so that I can continue to talk through these things and work through, like, the labels, stripping away those labels, that kind of stuff. All right. Number 4, it says to remind yourself that most people juggle issues that make the world less predictable. None of us have that coveted sense of control all the time. Yes. Number 5 is optimize your functioning optimize your functioning through better self-care. Diet, sleep, exercise, stress management, hobbies, and relaxation. Investing in yourself sends the message that you are worth it. So, these are things that I definitely have been struggling with. Diet, sleep, exercise. So I use an app called Copilot. And right now I'm set up to do 3 sessions a week. It's all on my phone. And I do stretches, like active stretches on Monday and Friday. And then on Wednesdays, I just started doing arm workouts. So just kind of trying to build back the habit of exercising on a regular basis, in smaller doses, but also doing things that are hopefully helping my body with the pain that I have in my leg and my hip. So, that last sentence of investing in yourself sends the message that you are worth it. You know, I end every show reminding you that you are worthy. And that reminder isn't, you know, how I end the show is not, it's it's for you, but it's also for me. It's also to remind myself that. Because there are times that I don't feel worthy. I mean, I think we all go through that, and as I've been kind of, walking through, learning more about myself, about, my ADHD and working through, medications and that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's been hard to remember that I am worth the effort, to learn about this stuff, to take care of myself. So yeah, I appreciate number 5, and we'll work to keep that top of mind. Her final recommendation, for accepting yourself is to celebrate your gifts. You may feel that your capabilities don't exist because you can't reliably access them. We don't expect artists to create masterpieces every day. Show the same compassion for yourself and don't hold yourself to unrealistically high standards. Nothing can steal your brilliant solutions from you. Rather than lament that they don't occur often enough, celebrate them when they do. Celebrate your gifts. Celebrate your wins. When I make the bed, even if some days when I make the bed at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or something, it still gives me a little bit of joy just to know that the bed's made and it looks nice. When I put my clothes away, the day that I wash and dry them, that's a win for me. That, it's yes, I did. Okay, yes, I did it. Okay, I got it done. And so this is something that I feel pretty consistent with the small things that the small wins that I have, but definitely I have to work on that, showing myself that compassion, and not holding myself to unrealistic high standards. So yeah. Okay. Now, I will say too, this list of 6 things, right, to accept yourself, whether you have ADHD or something else, or you're more on the neurotypical side, those are 6 steps that can help everybody. I mean, when you think about it, and this again, it's listed in the show notes if you want to follow up on it, but if we just, in general, right, to accept more of ourselves, we need to learn about our brains, learn about our bodies, how everything works, together, strip away labels that you have, break out of the prison of isolation, remind yourself that most people juggle issues, optimize your functioning through better self-care, and then celebrate your gifts. That is something every single person that's listening to this podcast could work through and come out on the other side. Hopefully a happier and healthier version. And maybe you can't do these by yourself. Maybe it's something that you work with a therapist with, that you work with a friend with, that you talk through somebody with, you find a support group, whatever. These are things that we can, each and every one of us can do to accept ourselves fully for who we are. And I want to remind you again, I am not a medical doctor. The information that I'm sharing is not to be taken as diagnostic advice. I do encourage you to seek out a diagnosis from a doctor or make an appointment with a therapist if you related to the information that I shared today. The first step of the journey starts by simply asking the question, making the appointment, asking the question, right? That's the first step of the journey. All right. That's going to close up our time for the day. I really appreciate that you took the time to listen to the episode. Please feel free to share it on social media if you think it would help someone else as well. Next week, I'm sharing my conversation with artist and teacher Martha Arrington. Such a wonderful conversation. I really am excited for you to hear it. But until then, I want you to remember, as I will try to remember for myself, that you are loved, you are worthy, and there are great things ahead for you in this life if you trust and believe in the Lord. I will see you next week. Bye.